Afternoon, everybody. That photograph was taken a while ago, so it's not just the age of working at WHO. Huge thanks to everybody that's set this meeting up. It's always a pleasure to be back in Singapore. It's actually where I started my life, just I think about 20 kilometers east of here, having been born in Singapore. I hate to say it, but just before Singapore independence of 1965, but it's always a pleasure to be back. I'm Jeremy Farrar, the Chief Scientist at the World Health Organization. What I've had, though, and I think it's relevant to this discussion, is effectively three careers. The first career, in some ways, after graduating in medicine, was 18 years living in Vietnam, just up the road, as a clinical scientist. And then 10 years between 2013 and 2023 as head of something called the Wellcome Trust, the world's second largest charity, I think, or third, whatever, $50 billion foundation, philanthropy. And now for the last 2 years as chief scientist at WHO. And so whatever I've learned on that pathway, I think is relevant to the question of how philanthropy can come together to address the great challenges of our time. And we face some really great challenges, as we've heard throughout the last few hours, and we will hear through the next few days. Whether it's climate, biodiversity, nutrition, malnutrition, antimicrobial resistance, pandemics, multimorbidity, demographic shifts, energy, water transitions, the world faces some huge challenges. And we are also going through an era at the moment where politically and in much of the media, there's almost a nihilism that is being allowed to grow. Climate change is just too difficult to deal with, let's ignore it. Pandemics happened, and we lived through the pandemic of 2020 onwards, but they're not going to happen for another 100 years, so why bother? Multimorbidity and demographic shifts is just something that is going to happen. So let's give up and let's just do what we've always done. We cannot let that cynicism take hold. Because actually at the same time we face these enormous global challenges, we are also living through a scientific golden age. In all my career, which went back to the last century, I've never lived in another time when scientifically, I think there is more to be optimistic about than at any other time in my career. If you'd have said to me at the turn of the century, or as a junior doctor in working in the UK and Australia and America, within my personal professional career, we would have vaccines for a pandemic, we would have vaccines for dengue, for malaria, for tuberculosis, we would have treatment for breast cancer and other forms of cancer using the patient's own cells to treat themselves. And we would start to be thinking even about vaccines for cancer itself. I would not have believed you. That has come about because over the last 20, 30, 40 years, people, public sector, private sector, and philanthropy have invested in science for its own purpose, discovery, basic science, which is now coming through into the breakthroughs, so-called, that we see when we have the scientific endeavor coming in to people's lives and making a difference. It is that long-term investment in science that drives the optimism that science is all about. Science is all about thinking tomorrow will be better than today and better than yesterday. And if we take away that optimism, if we take away that hope, then we will give in to the cynicism of today that we cannot make a difference. And so what is the role of philanthropy in that? Philanthropy is not government. Philanthropy is not the private sector. Philanthropy usually does not have shareholders or stakeholders. Philanthropy is free. It's not free. I'm not suggesting there's anything like a free lunch. But as a philanthropist, you can choose what you do as an organization. You're not constrained by government, by taxpayers. You're not constrained by shareholders. That is a responsibility. It is not to be government. It is not to be industry. It is to be different. That is the liberation, that's the liberty you have as a philanthropist. And I didn't realize that until I left the Wellcome Trust and went into a public health agency, how much freedom you've got. But if you've got freedom to take risk, to catalyse, to work with communities, to make things happen that governments and industry may not be able to make happen. I believe there's a responsibility to use that. So my plea to philanthropists in the room, think bigger than you think you are, make a difference, work together, and challenge the system, not accept the system. I think philanthropy is there to challenge systems, not to accept it, and be that catalyst for change. And by doing so, you will push the rest of society, you'll push governments, you'll push industry, you'll push academia to do things that maybe they didn't think they could do themselves. That is the role of philanthropy. As a partner, and we have our regional director for the Wipro region here, sitting over there, the world's best selfie taker, could I say, and our WHO representative from Singapore. WHO and the UN agencies are not monolithic bureaucracies that can't move. We can be, whether it's WHO, UNDP, UNICEF, UNA, all of them can also be your partner in making the world a better place. And finally, it is always a privilege to come to these meetings. We sit in beautiful ballrooms, we have nice cocktails. With that privilege comes a responsibility. Everybody in this room has agency and power, even if you don't realize it. The responsibility of sitting in this room and saying warm words is what you do when you leave this room. Are you committed to seeing those warm words through? Are you committed to making the world a better place? And are you committed to challenge the system, not accept it? Thank you.